Hey, how are you all? I'm doing fine. So today we are going to see a very interesting and very important topic. So this should be very important for those in their adolescent stage and also the parents who has kids of the adolescent stage. So what happens in high school and colleges is guys they usually reside in hostel, and whenever they communicate, most of the time they are going to speak about girls, how hot they look. So that's what they spend most of the time talking with. The same goes with girls. They discuss about how hot or smart the guy is, and somebody usually fall in love with other, and the rest will just be busy talking about that love couple. So this actually makes them feel that somebody is very lucky to have a hot girl as his girlfriend. So even those who are not engaged in such conversation, even they listen to these things, and slowly they start getting this idea that they are not suitable enough to acquire someone of that smart nature. So they're just not lucky. So this is what happens not only with the college but with all the media. In movies they always show how hot a girl looks, how smart a guy looks. On watching every single scene of that, your mind automatically programs very deeply that you are not adequate enough to possess them. So what happens after that is, then you go to work. Even there you will be encountering friends who talks about girls and guys and how smart or hot they look. So your mind gets more and more corrupted with this kind of thoughts. Then you get married eventually, and what happens is, during your college days or high school days, you would be recording some images of girls or parts of them like lips or any other part that looks very appealing to guys. So in your mind you have recorded that to be the standard, or that to be hot. So you have already believed that you are not worthy enough to get that sort of person with those features. But after you get married, while you work or at some other places, you will eventually meet some girl or guy with the same kind of feature that you have been yearning for. So all of a sudden you forget that you are already married. And the same goes with the girl. She might or might not be married, and she would be brought up by the same society with having some kind of expectation about her ideal guy. Maybe that matches with what you look like. So that's how illegal affair start blooming between you. But you didn't know that it is the kind of thought that you have sowed in your college days that's bringing you this kind of problems. So that is why you need to stay away from the friends who speak about girls or guys, because maybe you didn't willingly listen to it, but still it enters you. Whatever enters your mind, it will definitely work its way out. You don't know when it's going to come out, but that will definitely spoil your future. The whole world is constantly trying to make you believe that you are not enough unless you achieve that. You are not enough unless you possess that. You are not enough unless you have that girl, that kind of girl as your life partner, or that kind of man as your better half. So that is what this world is constantly doing. So you need to be aware of it, and you need to protect yourself from that. The only way to do that is to associate yourself with some kind of genuine spiritual group. So only they don't discuss about how hot the girl or guy look like. If they do, you should separate yourself from that group immediately, because the spiritualism or any religion, their entire goal is to make you feel fulfilled on your own. You don't need anything external to make you feel full. So you are already complete. God has created us complete and perfect, but we are not that perfect as when we were originally created by God, because He created us 5,000 years back. He created this world as heaven, a perfect place filled with bliss, peace and purity, and we were filled with all divine characters. That's why we were called deities, and those deities are being worshipped by Hindus till date. Yes, this India was originally heaven in the beginning, and this heaven was created directly by God. How does He do that? Let's see it later. Before that, let's continue this. So in the beginning of this time cycle, which lasts for 5,000 years, this is called Kalpa. In the beginning, the world would be very perfect. It will be filled with gold and diamonds, palaces made of gold and diamond, and people would be filled with divine characters like love, peace, and they didn't get attached to anything. They didn't have lust over anything. They didn't get angry over anything. They did not have any sort of ego, and the reason for that is they didn't consider themselves to be this perishable body. Instead, they would consider themselves to be the imperishable soul that shines like a tiny star in between the eyebrows, which is why Hindus till date have this habit of wearing red colored dot called bindi over here. So that's us, not this body. This body is more like the dress. Once it gets unsuitable to wear, we just get rid of it and we take on new clothes. Similarly, once this body is unsuitable for us, we get rid of this body, which people call as death, and we take another body in the womb. So that's the rebirth. Everybody should undergo rebirth, no exception at all. Whether it is Sri Krishna or Jesus Christ or Buddha, everybody has to undergo rebirth. Where are they now? They are still here in some body. So they are here. They may be a girl or guy, but they must have taken rebirth. So everybody is here, and the difference between their first birth and the last birth is, in the first birth they'd be very perfect, they'd be very pure, they'll be filled with the divine characters. After taking several rebirths, what happens is they gradually lose their power, the soul power, because of which they lose the divine qualities, and they will eventually be filled with all sort of impure qualities like lust, anger, greed, attachment and ego. These 5 vices is present both in men and women towards the end, that is now Kali Yuga. And this is when God comes. He enters an old man's body and he introduces himself to be also a soul. He is also a soul like us, We are soul shining like a tiny star in between the eyebrows, and God is also a soul. He is always here in his supreme abode. This is called Parandam or Paralog. This would be golden red colored light world. And not only God, even we, before taking birth on earth, were present as souls without anybody there. That's our sweet home. And towards the end of the world, before the destruction of this old world, 100 years before that, God himself comes. He enters an old man's body because he doesn't take birth like the rest of us. He doesn't take birth from a mother's womb. He directly enters an old man's body and start giving this teaching, revealing this secret that this world was originally created as heaven, and we were originally created as divine beings. But eventually the world gets older and we get impure, and God comes in the end to purify ourselves, to make us get rid of these 5 vices. The only way to do that is to realize ourselves to be this imperishable soul that is entirely distinct from this perishable body. You can compare this to a car driver riding a car. He is not part of the car, but still car is within his control. Similarly, the soul is not a part of this body, but still the body is being controlled by the soul. As soon as it leaves the body is useless. It can't perform on its own. So we are the soul. While we were in heaven, we had this consciousness that we were souls, and we would see other person just as a point of light in between their eyebrows, and we wouldn't be attracted towards the body, but we would be very beautiful in the beginning. Despite that, we wouldn't be carried away from the external beauty. Instead, we would be focused only on the eternal soul. What do you get out of that? Unlimited happiness. Yes, the blissfulness. Because the soul itself is an embodiment of blissfulness and peacefulness. So it continues to be so for the first 2500 years while this world was heaven. After the completion of 2500 years, this becomes hell. What makes it hell is we start forgetting that we are souls. Instead, we started considering ourselves to be this perishable body, because of which we become addicted to sensual pleasures, because we wanted to derive happiness from the external sources, because we could no longer get happiness from within, because we forgot that we are souls. So we couldn't get that happiness that we used to get in heaven out of the soul consciousness. So since we became body conscious, what happens is we started experiencing sorrow for the first time. And as soon as we started experiencing sorrow, we start searching for God, because we know deep within that God actually created us with everything that is required for being happy. But somehow we got out of God's path, and that's the reason we are suffering. That's why they started creating religions that we see now, like Hinduism, Christianity, Islam, and so on. Despite that, the amount of sorrow increases day by day. You know why? Because man couldn't find on his own that it is because he lost soul consciousness that he is encountering so many sorrowful things in the world. He couldn't predict that on his own. So God comes in the end and reveals this secret, and to be happy again, all we need to do is to realize ourselves as a point of light, the souls. And we have to remember God, who is also a point of light in the golden red colored world. So we have to visualize God as a point of light in the golden red colored sky, and we have to remember him very lovingly as our loving dad, So how do we love somebody we do not know of? Because honestly, nobody knows about God. No religion says about God exactly. So the only way to know about God is through his own mouth. That's why he comes in the end. So he gives his knowledge, which is collectively called Murli. You can get it totally free of cost from any Raj Yoga meditation centers that spread across the globe. Or you can Google the term Murli, Murli, in any language. It could be Russian Murli, Japanese Murli, Chinese Murli, English Murli, Hindi Murli, whatever. Just Google it, you will find the site, and in that site you search for the location of the nearest Raj Yoga meditation center and you go there. It's totally free. You can get the direct word of God. After listening to it constantly for few months, you will see yourself undergoing a complete change in a very positive manner. So coming to the topic, we shouldn't poison ourselves by letting those vicious thoughts from others or from movies to enter us, because that's eventually going to create a lot of damage in our lives and in the lives of others. So we have to distance ourselves from such friends. If possible, you can teach them that they are going in the wrong path. Who knows, maybe they will become suddenly aware of that and they could change as well. But if they don't, they are not lucky. Just get rid of them, or else they will contaminate you with such thoughts, with such dirty thoughts. So being careless about letting these poisonous thoughts is the main reason for all sorts of illegal relationships, rapes, and all sorts of evil things against women and children. People always say the punishment should be made very strict so that people would be afraid to commit those sins again. But the reality is, it is not possible, because our souls have become very weak and powerless. That's why it's driven towards the sensual pleasures. So if it gets powerful with the thought of God, it will eventually come out of it. So in Kali Yuga, as we now live in this internet world, it is totally impossible for you to become strong at the soul level without remembering God, without listening to the God's words. No matter which religion you belong to, even that religion is not sufficient enough to make you strong, because those religions and the religious scriptures were written by humans. So that can't save you, that couldn't reveal these secrets. They ask you to stay pure, but they don't give you the way to stay pure. Then how come you become pure? That's why we often see religious men falling for lust. So on seeing that, people think that they no longer have faith in religion and they become atheist. But that's more dangerous, because if religion men are not able to control their mind, it means it actually reflects the kind of society we live in, because they spend much of their time in remembrance of God or the religious scriptures. Despite that, they couldn't control their mind, they couldn't contain their lustful thoughts. So just think of people who doesn't even care to think of God even for a second. So they will be more contaminated. Maybe they couldn't get the chance to do dirty things. That's the only difference. But these religious men, people, they have faith on them, so they meet them frequently, so they may get some chance to behave badly. That's how we get to know them. But it doesn't mean that we are in any way better than them. It just cautions us that we need to stay more strong by getting on hold to God more firmly than ever. Thank you so much for watching this long, and please leave the comments saying your opinions, and that should help us improve in terms of content. And please subscribe if you haven't. Om Shanti. Thanks again for watching.